All right, good evening and welcome to this webinar. My name is Steve Whitacre. I am the founder and president of Trinity College, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar entitled, What is the Bridge Year? In this webinar, we're going to talk about what is the Bridge Year, we explain how it works, who it might serve, how it might serve you or your student, and some other details related to the Bridge Year. Now, a couple of housekeeping matters along the way. If you have questions, I'm going to save some time at the end to field questions that you may have, but you can ask questions at any time. There is a little button down at the bottom of your window that says chat. I'm monitoring that, keeping an eye on that. So if you would like to, post a question at any point, I will try to keep an eye on that and either answer it if I can, kind of in the moment, or save it for the end and consolidate all those things and answer any questions there. So again, my pleasure to welcome you. This is about what is the Bridge Year. I should begin by explaining that Trinity College is a relatively new academic venture that we began several years ago. We wanted to have an educational institution that was academically rigorous, that is thoroughly Christian, where a Christian worldview is pressed into every corner of the curriculum, where professors are self-consciously teaching from a Christian worldview. And we also wanted an educational opportunity for our students that is closely and meaningfully tied to the life of the local church. We looked around trying to find where could we see this sort of thing, and we realized, you know what, we should start our own college. And we started looking into it and realized, yeah, this is possible. We can do this. And so we began Trinity College, and we are now in our third year. We are in the process of building out a 4-year liberal arts curriculum. We're going to be establishing a Bachelor of Arts program in liberal arts. We're going to be offering just that one major, a liberal arts major. And I'll talk more. If you have questions about what is a liberal arts major and how that can help, put those in the chat. I'd be happy to speak to that. So in this process, it's our third year, so we're still building out the curriculum. And where the Bridge Year fits into this is we're taking the freshman year of this 4-year program and we're offering it as a standalone program, and we call that the Bridge Year. And there's several different ways that the Bridge Year might serve prospective students, serve families and churches that are thinking about education. First of all, if you are a student and you are in high school right now and you're trying to figure out what you should do, maybe you're not sure about where you should go to college. Maybe you're not sure about what you want to do with your life and your future. You're not sure yet about making a decision about a career. Those are big decisions. They're some of the biggest decisions you're going to make in your life. You're going to make in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. It's very significant. And sometimes those decisions are very hard to make. And it's understandable that many young people are concerned, like, wow, what do I do? How do I make this decision? And so I'm going to talk in a moment about how the Bridge Year might be just right for you. Now, some of you maybe have a pretty good idea of what you want to do. Maybe liberal arts doesn't really figure into that equation significantly for you, but you are thinking about a different, maybe more technical career, such as engineering or nursing or accounting, or maybe you're just thinking about going into the trades. Maybe you want to go become a electrician or a plumber or something like that. In any case, the Bridge Year could be for you too. It's a 1-year program, and so it might be just the thing for you between high school and whatever it is you go on to do next, whether that's some kind of further education at a college or university, or if that's moving on into the trades or into the workforce in some form. Uh, the Bridge Year could also be for you if you are right now a high school junior and you're thinking about your senior year and what is that year going to be like. There might be a way that the Bridge Year could serve you, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. So several different possibilities here, several different ways that the Bridge Year could serve. Now, it's a 1-year program. So the Bridge Year spans just a typical academic year. We run August through May every year. And so we are already taking applications for the 2025-2026 school year. We've already got several applications in and really excited about how the student body is starting to take shape for next year. Some really great candidates who have applied, and in conversation with others. And maybe if you're here tuning into this, you might be thinking or currently in that process. Maybe you're still evaluating. So the Bridge Year is a 1-year program, and it functions as I mentioned, as the freshman year of our program, but it's ideal as well. We tried to set it up. We designed the curriculum to be able to stand alone as a 1-year program. And here's what I mean by that. Suppose you are going on, you want to go into some sort of more technical degree, something more specific than liberal arts, and you know that you're going to go to a secular university to do that. Maybe you want to study engineering or nursing or something, pre-med, pre-law, whatever it is. You're thinking, great, I'm going to go to a secular university, but I'm concerned about what I know is going to be a significant amount of ungodly ideology, a very non-Christian worldview among my classmates and especially among my professors in the curriculum. And even if you are an engineering major or an accounting major or finance or something like that, you would think, well, I'm not reading lots of books or interacting with lots of history. The fact is, these ideologies are going to be pushed your way, and a number of non-Christian ways of thinking about what is a human and race and ethnicity and gender and sexuality and what does flourishing look like in the world and how should government function in our lives. There's going to be all sorts of ideas that are going to be pushed on you, and the question will be, are you prepared? Are you prepared to interact with those ideas, to filter and discern what Scripture has to say about those ideas? And that's where the Bridge Year can come in, because in 1 year, our goal is to equip you to go out into the world and be ready for all those kind of ungodly ideologies, unchristian worldviews. We want to equip our students with wisdom, with character, with courage, with real conviction. And so that's what the Bridge Year is designed to do. And so it could serve you if you are, as I said, if you are headed out to college. Next, if you're just unsure of what you want to do, the Bridge Year could serve you in significant ways as well, because the Bridge Year, we focus a lot on vocation. We talk a lot about vocation. A lot of people, when they hear the word vocation, they think, oh, okay, you mean like finding a job. Or they think, well, vocational tech school. This means like welding or cosmetology or plumbing or something like that. And the word is used that way sometimes, but we're thinking of vocation here in the older, more traditional sense, the way the Puritans thought about it, the Reformers. The Puritans thought about vocation. They recognized that word vocation comes from a Latin word for calling, and they said, we have callings on our lives. If you are a Christian, you are called to many things. You are called to follow Jesus Christ. You will probably eventually be called to be a husband or a wife, father or a mother. You can be called to some kind of career, some kind of job. Maybe you're going to be called to serve in the church as a small group leader, as a ministry team leader, as a pastor, as a worship team member. It could be any number of things. And you're going to be called to be friends to people. And there could be lots of other roles that you might be called to fill. So we talk about vocations because there are many vocations. Some of those you'll have your entire life. If you're called to serve the Lord your entire life. That's a vocation you'll have for the rest of your life. Other vocations may come and go. You may be called for a certain period of time to work at one job. You may be called to move on to something else. So some vocations will change. And a big part of what we want to do in the Bridge Year is to equip young people with the biblical wisdom to understand what is a vocation. How do I discern my vocation? How do I get good advice from others about vocation? How do I go looking for and finding my way to the kinds of callings that God has on my life? And we think that's really important, because a lot of young people haven't been confronted with very many big decisions yet. And since some of the biggest decisions you're going to make are coming right up, now is a really good time to get equipped to make these big decisions. Now is a really good time to think through, how do I discern God leading me in calling, in vocation, leading me in to college, to a major, to a career, to a spouse, to a church, to a place. We need wisdom and help. If we just do what comes naturally in making those decisions, it might not work out that great. But if we can apply biblical wisdom and discernment, the Lord will lead us. And so a big part of what we want to do in the bridge year is equip students with this idea of vocation. So one of our classes, we have a 1 credit hour class, kind of a little bonus class we call practical theology. And so in that class, we'll read a good bit and talk a good bit about vocation, as well as biblical manhood and womanhood, serving in the church. We do interviews with leaders in the church, both pastors and their wives, as well as just folks who are involved in business or homemaking or whatever else. So a lot of opportunities there to learn from others. Now, that's just one of the classes. I've only mentioned one of the classes so far, and I'll come to, in just a moment, I'll come to our lineup of other classes. So I mentioned now that this could be really fruitful for you if you know what you're doing next, if you want to go into some sort of more technical thing, or so you're going to go on to get a degree, but you want to get equipped with worldview and Bible and theology, or it might be for you if you're just unsure of what you want to do next. And it also the bridge year might also be for you if you are currently a high school junior and you are thinking about your senior year. Especially if you are homeschooled, we offer the bridge year as a dual enrollment option, which means that you can take it as a senior in high school and uh, fulfill some of your credits as a senior, assuming you've already got your math and science and everything you need there, or taking that in some other avenue. Then you can take the bridge year and fulfill some of your requirements, possibly for your senior year, work towards graduation that way. And that can also function as your freshman year at Trinity College. So if you plan to come on to Trinity College, then you are a step ahead. You will have already taken your freshman year at Trinity College. Now, if you're planning to go to somewhere else, if you're thinking about another Christian school, we are also working to establish relationships with other colleges where we could easily transfer credits from the bridge year to other colleges. So that's still underway. We're talking with some different schools about that now. And if it's something that you're interested in, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to give you all the latest details and updates on where we're at with those relationships. So that's some exciting developments that are underway. So 3 different possibilities of the kinds of people the bridge year might serve. So you might be asking, well, what is the bridge year? You've already mentioned practical theology. What are the other classes that are involved in the bridge year? And I'm glad you asked. So we have 5 classes. Each of these classes, I should say right up front, is a 3-credit-hour class, which means you will be in class for 3 hours a week per class. So it's 15 hours of class time. And I'll come back to what more of the workload for that is like in just a minute. So 5 classes, a few different ways we could think about this. First, we have a class called Biblical Anthropology. Anthropology is a fancy word that means, what does it mean to be human? And so in that class, Dr. Josh Blunt teaches us on what does it mean to be human? Look at the image of God. What does it mean to be made in the image of God? How is the image of God corrupted by sin? How is it restored by Christ and the gospel? We also look at details related to anthropology that are very, very relevant to life in our world today. So questions about gender and sexuality, questions about race and ethnicity. What does the Bible have to say about these topics? Questions about counseling and human flourishing. How do we arrive at a state of human flourishing? What does that look like in a fallen world that we live in? So that's a fantastic class, a very popular class that students really enjoy, really benefit from, prepares them really well for what is coming in the future. Secondly, we have a class on logic and philosophy, Introduction to Logic and Philosophy. We want our students to be able to think well, to think clearly. And that's kind of a lost art, as you may have noticed if you've been paying attention to the world out there. And so in this class, we're going to study an introduction to logic. This is formal logic. This is learning how to think clearly, how to put propositions, ideas together to make an argument, to critique an argument. What are logical fallacies? What are the problems that we encounter? The other half of this class is we like to do introduction to philosophy. We want to introduce our students to what are some of the big ideas that have existed throughout history. Where do they come from? And who are the thinkers that have been particularly influential over history, over the course of history, to get us to where we are today? And that's an important class because we didn't just arrive here in a vacuum. This has been, we got to where we are now in the 21st century in the West as an accumulation of the thinking and contribution of lots of different philosophers. Some of those are really, really good. Some of those are really, really not. Some of them were really influential, good and bad. And so we want to understand where did the ideas that are surrounding us coming from, and that's what our philosophy class is meant to accomplish. So we've got that. Third, we also have a class on introduction to writing and literature. I guess we turn it around. Literature and writing. We usually call it Introduction to Literature and Writing. Now, this is a one-year introductory course. And so in this class, we're going to survey everything that we can, everything that we have time for from the three main big segments of history. So we're going to start by looking at literature from the ancient world, from the medieval world, and from the modern world. And that's going to be intertwined, not just the literature, but also the history. What's kind of the main events going on in the world. History and literature are really great to study together because by studying the literature of a particular time, you get a window. It's a particular angle into how did people think about the world in their own time. And by studying the history, then we see, well, what are the events that gave rise to this particular kind of literature that we look at the time? And so a great example of that might be to look at the Aeneid and to think through, well, what was happening in the world that would produce a piece of literature like the Aeneid? So the fall of Troy, establishing Rome. Virgil wanted to establish a mythology that would he wanted to establish some credibility for what is Rome and where did it come from and how did the fall of Troy fit into that and what was Aeneas's role in establishing Rome and so forth. So, but we can come at it the other way too and say, well, by reading the Aeneid, what do we learn about ancient Romans, their thinking about their origin story? And so we learn a lot about the world and the way people have thought about the world. And some aspects of that are very, very different from how things are today. Some aspects of that are, people's is people's. And some things haven't changed very much. And so there's a lot that we can learn there as well. So that class is literature and writing, as I said. So it also includes an important piece of learning to write. So in all of our classes, we do a fair amount of writing, but in that class in particular, students will learn the skills of writing, how to communicate clearly. So you can see between logic and philosophy and anthropology, we're preparing our students to think clearly, and then with writing and literature, we are learning to communicate clearly. Some of that will include spoken presentations, and so learning to give a speech. How do we do that, and how is preparing for that different than preparing a written word? So those are great. So 3 classes so far. Fourth class I teach is biblical theology and hermeneutics. So in the fall, we cover biblical theology. So we go through what is the big picture storyline of the Bible. We want our students to be equipped to understand what does the Bible teach? How does it teach it? What is the whole coherent, unified message of the Bible? And that's what biblical theology does by looking at the storyline of God's plan of redemption in Jesus Christ. And that prepares us then to dip down into the very granular, detailed process of biblical interpretation. We call that hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is a fancy term for the art and science of biblical interpretation, studying how to interpret the Bible. Fifth class, final class, I also teach New Testament Greek. So our students in the bridge year take Greek 1. And we go through Bill Mounce's book on basics of biblical Greek, excuse me. And so by the end of the year, students are able to read some chunks of the New Testament, largely unassisted. 1 John, parts of the Gospel of Mark, maybe parts of the Gospel of John. So it's really exciting to be learning the language of the Bible in the language it was written. And so those 2 classes really work together to give our students a real foundation and equip them with biblical truth and understanding. So those are our 5 classes that make up the bridge year. I mentioned a moment ago, they're 3 credit hour classes each. And so we plan on about 15 hours of class time. For the purposes of accreditation, which we're working towards, our professors need to assign something in the vicinity of 2 hours of homework for every 1 hour of class time, which means that could be up to 30 hours of homework a week, plus 15 hours in class. So students should think about the bridge year like they would a rigorous freshman year of college. It's like a full-time job. They could plan on up to 45 hours a week of class time and homework. I think in reality, a lot of students are able to get their work done more quickly than that. Many of our students work part time, are very involved in the life of the church in a small group and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of opportunities there for our students to be involved, but also they're going to work hard, and so it's good to have that expectation coming into it. We're going for it, and part of that is we want to learn as much as we can, and part of that is to prepare our students for the rigors of real life. Uh, Life is not that cushy. You're going to work hard in life to make a difference for the Lord. Let's begin establishing those habits of hard work now. Now, let's see, a few other things to talk about related to the bridge year. The bridge year, we're based here in Louisville, Trinity College of Louisville. Obviously, we're in Louisville, Kentucky, and we are based in Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville. So our campus is a classroom right off the auditorium and lobby of Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville, which is really fun because pastors and church members are coming and going all the time. We have lots of interaction with the Sovereign Grace Pastors College and those professors. And so our students are really involved in the life of a local church. Now, if you live somewhere else, you might be thinking, ooh, that's kind of a long way for me. Well, one of the benefits that we have of the bridge year is that we offer it both online and in person. So we love it when students move here to Louisville. We'll never have dorms, but we do have families in the church who are very eager to host bridge year students in their homes. And so that works out really well. We help those students get connected with those families. So parents maybe who are sending a student can know, all right, this is somebody we can trust. These are known members of the church, people who we appreciate. Now, for some students, may work even better for them to stay where they are. There's a lot of disruption that happens as you transition from high school to college. It's a big shift. And one of the ways to ease the burden of that transition is say, you know what, why don't you stay where you are? In some cases, this works best. Stay where you are and continue on with the discipleship that you've received from your parents, your pastors, your church, all the serving that happens there, and then join us for class over Zoom. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but I mean, here we are. Zoom is pretty effective. And so our students are able to sit in with us. They participate just like the other students. We have a big, huge TV at one end of the table. So at least on our side, our students are like life size. They just raise their hand. They jump right into the conversation. You know, if we're doing stuff like in Greek class on the whiteboard, that shows up right there. So our students can see that. And that's worked out really well for us. So that is an option. So they can either move here to Louisville or participate over Zoom for the bridge year. So those are a few options there. Let's see, what other questions do usually come up? Okay, so a few of you have joined since we began. So if you missed the public service announcement at the beginning, if you have any questions, you can just throw those into the chat. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left, so it's a good time to ask if you have any. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And oh yeah, okay, that's a great question about um, about finances. Like, what does Trinity College cost? That's a great question to ask, and obviously, college costs are a significant question for most students because they're out of control. It is unbelievable how much college costs, and it's getting worse by the year. So, one of our goals is to keep Trinity College as affordable as possible because we want to graduate students who are in a position to get married as soon as possible, to start families, to have the flexibility to take part in a church plant or go be involved in some sort of short-term missions activity overseas or something like that. So the year that we're in right now, the 24-25 year, our tuition for the year is just a little bit under $6,000 a year, which is fantastic because that'll be in many parts of the country, that'll be even less than their local community college. So we try to keep that very affordable. If you pay in full upfront, we have the option that we offer a 5% discount if you do that, or we have a couple different payment plans. Some people will split that in half and pay it each semester. Other people do it on a monthly basis. Probably budget a few $100s for books as well. We do read a lot of books, so it'd be good to have some books. So let's see other folks. Yeah, one person asking about, see I think the way the chat is set up, I see a question here about the chat. I think the way the chat is set up is it allows me to see the questions you're asking, but I don't know that everybody sees everybody else. I'm not sure that's how it's. I didn't set up this particular webinar, so I'm not sure how it's set up. So don't be alarmed if you're not seeing other people's questions. So if you have questions, drop them in there in the chat. Okay. Oh yeah, another question about Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville. So one of the things we love about Trinity College that we've been able to do is it is embedded in the life of Trinity. Trinity College is embedded in the life of Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville. So if you do come here for Trinity College, you'll be involved in every aspect of the church, which is so great. So Sunday mornings, we hear preaching from CJ. Bob is leading worship. It's fantastic. But we have a lot of other things that are going on too. So our students get involved in community group. They find a community group and they get plugged in. They go to our singles ministry. We have a young adult and college and singles ministry called Thrive that is really great. We also, students get involved in serving and all kinds of things. And one of the highlights for our students is that every Wednesday night, they come over to the Whitacre home for dinner. We call it Supper Club. And it's a ton of fun because students get a great home cooked meal. Mrs. Whitacre's a fantastic cook. And then we'll sit around and talk, and we discuss all sorts of things, but we do that with friends. We'll invite, in addition to our Trinity College students, we'll also invite members of the church, or maybe pastors' college families, professors from pastors' college, or other pastors from the church. And it's a great opportunity for us to learn from them, to hear their story. How's God been at work in their life? How are they saved? How did God save them? How did they get involved in the church? That sort of thing. And so those are rich times. We just have great food, great dessert, great coffee, great conversation. I love it. It's one of the highlights of the week for all of us, I think. And it's been one of our students' favorite parts of Trinity College. So that makes sense. You feed people, they love it. It's just great. So that's a big part of life in the church. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, great. Okay, well, great. Well, this isn't your last chance to ask questions. At any point down the road, if you have other questions, what always happens to me is not long after one of these things ends, I think, I wish I'd asked that. Very easy to get a hold of us on the Trinity College website, trinitycollegelou.com. We have, there's a little form there that you can easily reach out to us and contact us. Also would highly recommend subscribing to our newsletter if you're not already a subscriber. trinitycollegelou.com. At the very bottom of every page, you can subscribe. Oh, one other question. All right, we'll make this the last one because we've got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. Asking, do we accept scholarships? That's a great question. Depends on what you mean by that. Sometimes there are organizations outside of a college that offer scholarships to go to a college. And if that's the case, if you got an organization that you're talking to that would like to send you to college, that depends on the organization. We'd love to talk about that. Now, if you're asking, do we offer scholarships? Do we offer some kind of tuition assistance or something like that? We'd love to talk more with you about that. We don't have an official scholarship program, but we also would say we would never want a lack of finances to keep somebody from coming to Trinity College. So if you were like, hey, I'm sold, I'm on board, I really want to come, I just can't afford it. I can get this far, I can get 2/3 of the way, something like that. We would love to talk more with you about that. So I'd say reach out to us and let's schedule a personal consultation on that so that we can discuss it and see how we can make it work for you. Okay, we'd love to talk with you about that. So, well, that's great. We try to keep these things kind of tidy and brief in terms of time because we know everybody's time is precious. So we really appreciate your time. And as I said, if you have any further questions, this is meant to be just an introduction to the Bridge Year. What are we trying to do with the Bridge Year and how can it serve different kinds of students? So if you'd like to learn more, a lot of my time I spend on Zoom and phone calls with families, with pastors, with students, or even with whole youth groups at a time to talk about how Trinity College could serve you. So would love to hear from you. Love to be in touch. Thanks so much for visiting with us and look forward to seeing you next time. Stay tuned for future webinars. Thanks so much. Have a good night.